And time to take a look at what's making headlines around the globe. And for that, I'm joined in the studio by Clement Bonnereau. Hello, Clement. And of course, the big story of the day is that testimony from both Christine Blasey Ford and Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh before the Senate Judiciary Committee yesterday. It was certainly a gripping thing to watch.
Yes, and the story makes the front page of the New York Daily News. You can see a picture of Christine Blasey Ford on the verge of tears, watched by millions. Ford said she was 100% sure that Kavanaugh was her attacker. She gave a gripping testimony, writes the paper, her voice shaking as she described how she thought Kavanaugh was going to rape her. Her testimony is also the lead story in the New York Times. You can see their front page, this time with two photos side by side, one of Ford with the headline 100% and one of Kavanaugh, 0, I'm 100% certain. And that's what Kavanaugh told the Senate Judiciary Committee. Both the accused and the accuser have now spoken. But what will the senators say, asked the New York Times, this as Kavanaugh's fate hangs in the balance.
And Clement, many papers are praising Ford for her courage, but on the other hand, Kavanaugh's testimony has been widely criticised, hasn't it?
Indeed, his attitude throughout the hearing, crying and getting upset, has inspired a lot of cartoonists in the US. As you can see with this cartoon in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, you see Kavanaugh dressed as a baby, having a tantrum, standing next to Donald Trump, who's also known for his tantrums.
OK, so what comes next for Brett Kavanaugh?
Well, his nomination must be cleared by the Senate Judiciary Committee and then approved by the Senate. But should there be a vote now, though, papers are divided on the issue. In its editorial, the Washington Post says the vote should be delayed. There's still plenty of time, the paper argues. The Senate should be given access to all relevant documents to get to the bottom of what really happened to Kavanaugh's accuser. The New York Post, meanwhile, sides with the judge with this headline, Brett Kavanaugh deserves a vote. Both testimonies were equally moving and powerful, but there is no evidence against Kavanaugh, says the paper. Is that enough to destroy someone's life? No, says the paper. Failing to call a vote now would set a dangerous precedent, meaning that character assassination will become more common in the future.
And moving on, the other big story of the day is the fact that we have the Turkish president visiting Germany, and there's a lot of anger in Germany as this Turkish leader begins his 3-day visit to the country. So what are German papers saying about this visit?
Well, papers are very worried. There are doubts about Erdogan's intentions, says the Frankfurt-based daily Frankfurter Allgemeine. Officially, Erdogan wants to mend relations with Germany, but is he sincere? Members of the opposition are not so sure. The paper cites the Green MEP Cem Özdemir in its opening paragraph. Behind Erdogan's so-called charm offensive, there is no will to change.
So what exactly is Erdogan looking for?
Well, news website Politico argues that Erdogan is simply needy. His newfound wish for warmer relations may be linked to his country's economic crisis. The Turkish lira has lost a third of its value since the beginning of the year, and inflation is on the rise. Now, Erdogan is reluctant to ask the IMF for help, and therefore he's hoping that Europe can provide an alternative.
So on the other hand, what's been the reaction back in Turkey among the Turkish media?
Well, some papers are critical of Erdogan's strategy. Opposition daily Hurriyet reminds us that a year ago Erdogan called German officials Nazis. This after Germany rejected his demand to campaign in the country. Europe will not continue as if nothing happened, says the paper. It's up to Turkey to take the necessary steps to improve relations with the EU, and that means apologising to the EU and also improving democratic standards in Turkey. And in that regard, Erdogan has a lot of work to do, says Hurriyet.
Now, I'm smiling because this is what we call in the industry a dramatic change of pace, isn't it, Clement? Le Parisien today has led on a new study suggesting that the French are engaging in more varied and frequent sex than ever before.
Indeed, and what could be more French than sex? Well, more sex, as it turns out, Annette. French people are letting loose, warns Le Parisien. The study reveals that the French are having more sexual partners and are being more unfaithful than ever before. They're also experimenting with new practices and talking more openly about their experiences. Interestingly, the owner of a sex shop who's interviewed in the article suggests that attitudes are changing because of films and books, such as 50 Shades of Grey. Now, I can hear that French people are having more fun, but I have to say they have terrible taste in literature.
OK, on that note, we're going to leave it there. Thank you, Clement. And if you want to take a look at the stories that Clement has been talking about, you can, of course, head to our website, that being france24.com.